Hello everyone, my name is Lily Van Hoy and I will be presenting my poetry explication on the poem We Real Cool, written by Gwendolyn Brooks in 1959. Here is a recording of Gwendolyn Brooks herself reading the poem.
The pool players, 7 at the golden shovel. We real cool, we left school, we learn light, we strike straight, we sing sin, we then gin, we jazz June, we die soon.
In the same recording, the author goes on to explain her inspiration for writing the poem.
I wrote it because I was passing by a pool hall in my community one afternoon during school time, and I saw therein a little bunch of boys, I say here in this poem 7, and they were shooting pool. But instead of asking myself, why aren't they in school, I asked myself, I wonder how they feel about themselves, and just perhaps they might have considered themselves contemptuous of the establishment, or at least they wanted to feel that they were contemptuous of the establishment, might want to thumb their noses at the establishment, and I represented the establishment with the month of June, which is a nice, gentle, non-controversial, enjoyable, pleasant, fragrant month that everybody loves.
After reading the poem myself, then hearing the recording of the author reading the poem, and finally listening to the author's explanation of the poem, a few things immediately stood out. The sound of the poem, especially when read by the author herself, is musical, and appears to have a distinct rhythm, which is quite unique. In her explanation of her inspiration for We Real Cool, I found Brooks's recognition that the teenagers want to feel contemptuous of the establishment important, as it depicts them as rebels who proudly defy convention and authority. The contrast between the contemptuousness of the teenagers and the pleasant nature of June is also interesting, as it clearly separates the establishment, or the authority, from the rebellious teenagers. In her poetry, Gwendolyn Brooks frequently sought to highlight the struggles of Black communities who were attempting to overcome their horrible experiences of segregation and oppression during the Civil Rights Movement. Written in 1959, at the height of the American Civil Rights Movement, We Real Cool also seems to comment on the social condition, specifically among the youth, during such a difficult time. The poem immediately starts off by clearly describing a group of 7 teenagers hanging out outside of a pool hall called the Golden Shovel, a name that may suggest the alluring yet dangerous nature of the establishment. As a group, the teens clearly present themselves as real cool rebels who skip school and push back against authority, as they lurk late and strike straight. It is clear that this group wants to be known as rebels and delinquents, as they refuse to comply with any form of authority or conformity, as they attempt to live fast and without a care. These teenagers are not ashamed of their rebelliousness, as they sing sin, or praise and celebrate their own unconventional and unrestricted behavior. The pride of these rebels is highlighted in their celebration with gin for their ability to challenge authority and break the rules. As mentioned in her explanation for the inspiration behind We Real Cool, Brooks points out that she uses June to represent the establishment or as a symbol of authority, as the unruly teenagers happily dismiss its presence and power by absent-mindedly celebrating instead. The contrast between the contemptuousness of the teenagers and the pleasant nature of June is also very interesting, as it clearly separates the establishment or the authority from the rebellious teenagers. However, the speakers themselves admit that their rebellion comes at a serious cost, as they will die soon. Notably, the phrase, "we die soon," comes only after the poem's description of the teenagers' rebellion, which makes it appear as though an early death is the result of youthful rebellion and disobedience, or in other words, living fast means dying young. Considering the time period and the author's writing style, it's possible to interpret this rebellion as a detrimental effect of the oppression and segregation experienced by Black communities. Readers are able to look at the acts of rebellion depicted in the poem as a direct challenge to authority and social complacency during the Civil Rights Movement specifically. I think that by depicting these acts of rebellion of 7 pool-playing teenagers, Brooks hopes to inspire readers to question why these acts are being committed in the first place, as they are likely associated with the struggle for Black civil rights. Brooks may also be subtly trying to connect their rebelliousness to broader demands for social change among Black youth. Without meaningful opportunities to improve their lives, the speakers inevitably turn to crime, as the poem makes a powerful yet implicit case for social change in order to challenge the power structures of a society that allows prejudice and oppression to thrive. The enjambment of this poem is similar to the style of jazz improvisation. Notably, the pause after each rhyme word, such as cool school and late straight, makes it sound as though it is the end of the line, when it is actually not. Instead of each line ending on a rhyme word, each ends on we, which almost acts as a grace note, which is a short note added that's not important to the harmony or melody. So, this natural pause over we, and the mix of long and short vowels, brings great attention to these teenagers who would much rather defy authority by being at a pool house in Chicago instead of being in school. The unique enjambment and the use of alliteration with these long and short vowels mimic a jazz tune, as words begin to sound like crashing cymbals or a double bass, giving readers the impression that, considering the setting, these young pool players may also be immersed in the jazz culture. Overall, Gwendolyn Brooks's poem, We Real Cool, was extremely culturally insightful and important. I really enjoyed the poem's unique musical qualities, as it is rich in sound with a variety of different patterns that work together to create a distinctly jazzy rhythm. Finally, I really appreciated the simple and playful, yet inquisitive and culturally insightful characteristics of the poem, especially considering the context of the Civil Rights Movement. Thank you.